Hey, what's up, you guys? Today we're looking at the film Saworoide, so let's get into it. So, first, let me give you some background on this film. So, Saworoide was directed by Tunde Kalani. He's a Nigerian filmmaker, and he's known for making films that really promote Nigerian culture, and he particularly likes to do adaptations of literary works for screen. So, Saworoide, it tells the story of this town called Jogbo, and this man named Lapit has just been elected king there. And the plot follows the people of Jogbo as they work to overthrow Lapit because he's a really corrupt ruler. Now, what are we talking about today? Today, we're specifically looking at how Tunde Kalani portrays neocolonialism and African aesthetics in this film. So, let's start with neocolonialism. Neocolonialism is when one country exerts control over another country, and this is typically through indirect means. So, we could be looking at economical or political, etc., etc. Now, this concept is really important to this film as it influences a lot of the actions that Lapit does, and it also kind of drives the plot of this entire movie. So, when he's first made king, Lapit is informed by one of the chiefs that the kings of Jopo tend to not be particularly wealthy, and this is because of this ritual that is done when the kings are sort of sworn in. And this causes Lapit to refuse the ritual when he's being sort of sworn in. And he does this by pulling a gun on the man that's trying to perform the ritual. And this scene does a lot of things. For one, it lets the audience know relatively early on in the film that Lapit is driven by his desire for wealth. And it also, more importantly, sets the stage for neocolonialism. And so, shortly after this, Lapit is informed by a chief that he has to start looking into the logging industry if he really desires to get wealth. And this is where we see the neocolonialism really come into play in this movie. So the logging business in Jogbo is actually a specific foreign company, and they have a great deal of influence over both Lapit and Jogbo at large. Because when he goes there, he initially goes with the intent of shutting down the logging industry because the people of Jogbo have complained to him that they are cutting down the trees and then not replanting them, and then they also are exporting the animals of Jogbo. So he goes there to try and stop the men. But when he goes there, they offer him a deal he just can't refuse because he's so driven to get wealth, which is that like we'll give you like 10% of our profits. And so he agrees to that, and then unfortunately, the logging company starts getting even more power over Jogbo. And so this is how Kalani portrays neocolonialism in this film, with the logging company representing neocolonial forces and the citizens of Jogbo representing the victims of neocolonialism. And then Lapit works as a bridge between the forces and the victims of them, because he very quickly begins to assist this logging business. Now that we talked about neocolonialism in this film, let's get into how Tunde Kalani utilizes African aesthetics. So, one of the more obvious examples of African aesthetics in this film is the clothing that is worn by most of the people in this cast. So, for the citizens, Lapid himself and his wife, and the chiefs as well, they're all dressed in very traditional European attire. And this is in direct contrast of the attire that we see for the logging company, who wears these suits that are more close to what we think of as like Western aesthetics. And this is just a side note. I really enjoy the fact that the Kulani like purposely chose not to put Lapit in more like Western leaning sort of aesthetics once he starts working with the logging company, because I feel like it would have been really on the nose to have him suddenly go kind of push away from the traditional European attire. And I think it's much more accurate to how we actually see neocolonialism work out, which is that like if there is some sort of bridge between neocolonial forces and the victims of neocolonialism, the person that's working as the in between of the two is not going to immediately try and give away that they're working with neocolonial forces. They're still going to be sort of blending in with the victims of neocolonialism. So I thought that was a very good use of aesthetics here. And then another way that African aesthetics are presented in this film is through the music of the film. So obviously we have the Saworoide, which is this talking drum that is central to the film. But on a more subtle note, we have the singing that the people of Joburg like do. And both of these things together point towards the same thing to me, which is that music can act as some form of resistance. And this is really noticeable in the scene where the people are taking over the logging truck as a form of like protest for them cutting down the forest and not replanting them. And they're singing the song the whole time that they're doing it. And I feel like this plus the Saworoide being the essential part of this film, because the Saworoide is what is needed to defeat Lapit. I think both of these things together really work together to kind of portray a specific message. And I think through through the music and the clothing in this film, Kalani's really trying to point out how the key to like resistance against neocolonialism is cultural expression, because throughout the whole film with how the people are fighting back against Lapid and the logging industry. They are leaning into their African identity. They're singing songs and they're wearing their European attire. I feel like it was very important to show African aesthetics so strongly in this film, because like that is really what Kalani is trying to portray here. Like cultural expression above all else can be a form of resistance against neocolonialism. And that's all I had to say. Thanks, guys.